The pagan wood. 16 years ago. The little girl's body cowered and quaked in terror. The scent of blood was overwhelming, causing her to gag and choke with every breath. She covered her eyes and yelped as another soul fell face first into the mud, wretched beast of iron and smoke standing over him, tearing at his flesh. She looked around at the burning village, and her face paled as hordes of these metal creatures darted behind her. They were so cruel and so foreboding. Her eyes squeezed shut again as another scream filled the hollow night air with tragedy. This time, it was a voice Gwenevere recognized. It was her best friend, Aina. The sweet little girl, although a few years older than she, had been the only child in the village who had treated her as a playmate, not as a chosen child of legend. When she was with her, Gwenevere actually felt normal. The child looked up and shakily stood. She had to find her caretakers and get out of this place. Her mother was already dead, and never before had Gwenevere yearned for the safety of her branches more than she did at that moment. Gwenevere began to run, her bare feet nearly slipping upon the tainted mud. She cried out, the wind and thunder draining out her tiny voice. However, her words were not unnoticed. Suddenly, a cold rush of smoke engulfed her, and a harsh breeze knocked her down. Gwenevere fell into an untended rose bush, the sharp thorns raking across her flesh and tearing at her clothes. Through her pain, she saw 3 tall hooded figures advancing upon her. She gasped and backed further into the bush, even as the thorns went deeper into her arms and back. The middlemost entity was by far the largest and most frightening. His maddened eyes locked onto her fragile and helpless form, and pulled free a long silver blade. Gwenevere cried out again, and shielded herself with her arm as the man brought the sword down. Then he grunted as she opened her eyes. The blade was an inch from her throat. She began to breathe again as the tall figure begrudgingly sheathed his weapon.
This is the one we've been searching for. We shall not, nay, we cannot, touch her.
Gwenevere gasped as the 3 hooded men pulled her from her bed of blood and thorns. She could not move, still paralyzed in terror. From her right, she felt a sickening presence. She looked up to the only willow tree in the small burg, still sitting alone through the chaos. But then the child saw something else. Her eyes narrowed to focus through the smoke, and her heart froze. Lord Vladimir Simmons stood there, a tattered black cloak donning his shoulders. It flowed through the flames of the torched houses like an unholy black flag. Her enchanted green irises locked with his, and the world faded. The city. Present day. The moon did not show in the sky rich with smoke and screams. Through the turmoil and chaos, a figure made their way through the city. Once bathed in an ostentatious white glow, the streets were now dead, their glass lanterns shattered by the rioters. It was just the opportunity that the unseen thief needed. Garrett had never been a believer in neither luck or karma, but some unseen force was watching over him that night. This he knew, and he was grateful. Gwenevere was wrapped in the confines of his warm cloak, growing ever more listless by the minute. In a frantic, yet almost inaudible voice, The master thief continued to urge her forward, beckoning her fleeting spirit to remain within her body. To maintain her focus, and to prevent her exhausted eyelids from closing into final slumber, he would ask her questions, or make notes of what was going on during the lonesome trek back towards the clock tower. Anything, he told himself, as long as it kept her alive.
Gwenevere, can you feel the rain?
He asked, as the first droplets of a midnight downpour found his flesh. The nymph girl deigned to answer him with words. Now bordering on the brink of death, she managed only a light moan within her stale throat.
Gwenevere!
Garrett demanded, shaking her as her body began to relax a little too much for his liking. The thief stopped his procession, and knelt. Still clutching her close to his chest, he stared longingly into her soft features. She looked nothing like him, yet her resemblance to her mother was almost uncanny. Black hair replaced by red, untamed tenacity by gentle innocence. The darkness at the back of his mind began to torment him again. If she was his daughter, oh gods, what had he done?
Garrett.
Her whispers found his ears, bringing with them the first sparks of hope the thief had felt all night.
Yes, what is it, my Gwenevere?
Where are you taking me?
To the clock tower. I have a tonic there that...
He hesitated, not wishing to give her false hope when he barely clung to any himself.
Well, it might help you.
Guinevere's eyes widened, bringing a fleeting glance of her usual overabundance of energy back into her features.
No. Garrett, man-made medicines will have no effect on me. I need to return to the forest. Take me there,
she ordered.
Gwenevere, I may only have enough time to get you back to the tower. If we arrive in the pagan woods and don't find the help you seek.
A chill ran down his spine. Sensing his fears, Gwenevere graced her injured hand lovingly across his damp cheek. Tears fell from her eyes, mingling with the cold winter rain.
I know that you have problems trusting people. And you're even worse at listening.
He shuddered as her nails traced the outline where his chin met his throat. The nymph's eyes danced.
But you have to trust me now. Listen to me this once, and I swear I shall never direct you again. You are the master after all.
She breathed out a raspy breath. Garrett smiled softly and lifted her against his chest.
Even the master can sometimes learn a thing or two from the apprentice, Gwenevere.
Upon her arrival, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Even the ancient trees ceased to sway within the torrent of the storm, and the fireflies let their lights go out. Their last hope was now at death's door. Garrett's boots made light crunching sounds as they met with the dead leaves and discarded tree branches of the forest floor. He was no longer ill at ease within this place. His only thought now, the only drive he had left, was to save the life of the little nymph he cared so much for. Be she his lover, or his very blood, the thief did not want her to die.
Garrett.
Guinevere's soft voice seemed to cut the tension of the world around her.
Yes, Gwenevere.
His face wore a dark look of dire crisis.
Take me to the river.
She shook violently as the icy winter winds whipped through her damp, red hair. Her lips quivering and chapped, she looked her thief dead in the eyes.
You do know where the river is, don't you?
Garrett managed a solemn smile and gave a decisive nod.
Yes, Gwenevere. I know where it is.
He averted his eyes and scanned the dense foliage. At least, he thought that he knew where it was. He hadn't been to the pagan river in almost 2 decades. The last time he had beheld that sparkling body of water, it had been while in her mother's company. Pushing away those same nagging nightmares, Garrett continued forward. He hadn't taken but 2 more steps when a faint sound caught his acute ears. Garrett's eyes narrowed. It wasn't an animal, this much he knew. In an abrupt, swift motion, he whirled around and glared at the source. A man stood before him, wearing a dark brown robe and carrying an intricate wooden staff.
Take one more step, and I'll not let you take another.
The thief snarled. He wasn't feeling particularly on a bound at the moment. Whether it was against his credo or not, Garrett was intent on killing this man, if he even suspected a threat towards his injured Gwenevere.
Peace, outsider. I mean neither you nor the nymph any harm.
The stranger spoke in a low, serious tone.
You know what she is? Explain yourself.
Garrett growled.
Introductions can wait, man fool. I must get the last mother to the sacred spring, else all is lost.
The man then dropped his staff and extended his arms towards Gwenevere.
Let me take her.
Garrett locked eyes with him.
Not a chance.
Garrett.
Gwenevere wheezed. The thief reluctantly let his domineering gaze leave the pagan and stared pensively at her.
What is it?
Listen to him.
I can get you there myself, Gwenevere. I'm not about to let this cultist take charge of you.
The elder did not like the way this outsider was speaking to him. Almost uncontrollably, he dropped his ruse. His form shot up several feet in the air, sprouting bark and branches. Garrett held Gwenevere tighter against his chest, as the beast roared in protest.
Have no right, little human. Give us back our savior now, or you shall perish.
tree beast's eyes gleamed bright yellow, and a sick smile graced his maw.
I've tackled worse than you. You will not take Gwenevere from me.
Garrett proclaimed.
Enough!
The demanding words of the dying nymph caused both sides to recede from the mounting conflict. Garrett gawked down at the injured creature he held as delicately as a newborn babe. She was positively seething with authority. The sight of her luminous red eyes nearly caused the thief to drop her, and her voice was high-pitched and distorted.
I command you to escort Garrett to the spring, now!
And with that last bit of exuberance spent, Gwenevere collapsed into her thief's arms, unconscious. The beast shrank down into his human guise with an aggravated grunt.
It seems that she trusts you, and thus, so too shall I.
Garrett carefully climbed over the slippery rocks that lined the shoreline of the lake bed, and gently released the wilting nymph into the pleasant waters. Her body floated lazily upon the starlit surface, her eyes now firmly sealed shut. The thief closed his own eyes, and suddenly found himself praying to a god that he had never believed in. Literally begging to this unseen deity that she would be all right.